Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are beginning a new Masechta today, Mishna Megillah, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishna Aleph, Mishnah 1. We know on Purim we have a mitzvah to read the Megillah. So the Mishnah says, Megillah Nikreis B'Achadasar. The Megillah can be read on the 11th of Adar, B'Shnei Asar, the 12th, B'Shlosh Asar, the 13th, B'Arba Asar, the 14th, B'Chamish Asar, the 15th, Like Pachas v'lo yoser, not any less, not any more. Now we know from the Megillah that there is the reading of the Megillah on the 14th in unwalled cities, and on the 15th on cities. I think we're going to explain that soon. Okay, I'm jumping the gun. But the Mishna's introduction is these are all the dates in the month of Elul that it is possible for the Megillah to be read, and now the Mishnah is going to explain. Karachan amukafin chayma miyamois Yoshua ben Nun. Karachan typically means large cities, but in this case it means cities that are surrounded by a wall from the days of Yoshua ben Nun, from the days of Joshua. Karma chamisha asar. They read on the 15th of Adar. Kefarim vayaris gadolais, villages and large cities. The distinction between villages and large cities will become clear soon, but the point here is right now that both of them are unwalled. Kairin Barba Asar, they read on the 14th of Adar. So how do you have the other dates? Ela Shakfarim Makdim Makanisa. But the villages can come earlier than those dates for the gathering day in the large cities. Meaning because there's going to be an exception that for the villages that they're going to have the ability to read earlier because they're going to be able to read earlier Maknisa for the day of gathering, which we'll explain in a second. Okay, so the first thing is that the Mishnah says anything with a wall from the days of Yeshua ben Nun, you read on the 15th. Okay, so now where do we get this from? So in the notes here, they bring down from the Bartanur the following. A walled city is defined in this context as a town or city that was surrounded by a wall in the time of Yehoshua. Doesn't matter how big, how large, it's got a wall from the times of Yehoshua. That is defined as a walled city. They read the Megillah on the 15th.
Or where?
Excuse me?
Or where it is.
I know what you mean.
Could be South America.
Wherever it is, right. As long as it's a walled city, then from the times of Yehoshua, you better know from then it's going to read on the 15th. This definition is derived from a scriptural comparison between the verse in the Megillah that describes and a verse in Devarim that describes towns conquered by the Jewish people on their way to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, as long as a town or city was walled at that point in history, it is a walled city with respect to Purim as well. Okay, so basically, based on a derivation from a pasuk in Megillah's Esther, and a pasuk in Devarim, we understand that it's from that point of time that walled or unwalled is determined. Now, they bring down here another interesting point that the Bartanur brings down. Although the verse in Devarim refers to a time when the people were still under the leadership of Moshe, meaning why we say from the times of Yeshua ben Nun? We should say from the times of Moshe, because that's what we're learning from. Our Mishnah mentions Yehoshua, who led the conquest of Eretz Yisrael proper. Since it was Yehoshua who fought against Amalek, right? The first encounter with Amalek, it was Yehoshua who led that war. It is appropriate to connect the festival that recalls the defeat of Haman, who was from Amalek, with Yehoshua. So, saying that from the time of Yehoshua is really more about making a connection to Purim. Okay, now, the sages who decreed the laws of Purim decided not to base definition of a walled city on its status during the era of the Megillah, but rather on its status during the era of Moshe and Yoshua. Now he's about to explain why they based it on the time of Moshe Yoshua, and didn't base the definition of a walled city on the status during the era of the Megillah. Now, didn't we just say that there was a derivation from a pasuk in Devarim? Didn't we just say it's derived from there? So I think what they're about to explain, and so what do they mean? What are we about to explain? Why the sages decreed the laws of Purim that a walled city is not based on the status of the Megillah, but on the status of Moshe and Yehoshua? I mean, didn't we just say that we derived that from similar words in the Megillah and Devarim? I mean, we know Megillah is a Rabbanit's rabbinic mitzvah, and when they were determining it, they based it on that. So are we, are we saying it's not really a basis? It's just kind of like something, an allusion to it, or is the explanation now that a wall, you have to be walled from the times of Yehoshua? Okay, does that mean that your wall has to still be here or not? Does it still have meaning? Does it have to be meaning? Shushan had a wall, right? That's the 15th. And basically, things that are similar to Shushan are going to be on the 15th. We determine from the Psukim that it has to be walled from that time. Now, does the wall still have to be here? Does it not? Maybe it still has to be here, but it has to be a wall from the times of Yeshua and Moshe. Maybe it has to be that. Or maybe the point is that the derivation from the Pasuk and Devarim is what we call like an asmachta. It's something that the Chachamim kind of relied upon. They wanted a scriptural allusion to what they were doing. But this is the main point. Here they say like this. The reason why the definition of a wall is not based on what it was during the times of Megillah, but on the times of Moshe and Yeshua is the following. The reason that the events of the Megillah took place after destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, when the towns and cities of Eretz Yisrael lay in ruins. Therefore, if a walled city were to have been defined as one surrounded by walls in the period of the Megillah, the great walled cities of Eretz Yisrael would have to be designated as open. That would recall Eretz Yisrael's degradation at that time. Meaning, if you're going to say that it's determined by did it have a wall in times of the Megillah, there would be no cities in Eretz Yisrael that maybe at one time had a wall, but don't have the walls during the times of the Megillah because the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Eretz Yisrael was destroyed. No city in Eretz Yisrael would ever have a designation as a walled city. Therefore, to spare Eretz Yisrael from this shame, it was decided to define a town or a city by its state when the Jewish people entered Eretz Yisrael. If it had walls then, it is a walled city in regard to Purim, even if its walls were later destroyed. Bottom line, even when we say it has to have a wall from the times of Yeshua, it means to say that even if it had a wall then you're going to read on the 15th, even if it doesn't have a wall now. And the determination based on not presently, meaning at the times of the Megillah, but on the time of when the Jewish people entered Eretz Yisrael, was in order, so to speak, to show respect to Eretz Yisrael, to include them also in being like Shushan, being a walled city, because if we only went walled cities in times of the Megillah, then nothing in Eretz Yisrael would have been that way, and that would be, reminding us of the destruction of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so that is the determination of a walled city and an unwalled city. So the Mishnah said, if you're walled from the times of Yeshua, read on the 15th. If you're a village or a large city, meaning without a wall, read on the 14th. But an exception was made for the villages to be able to read earlier on the day that they gather. The day they gather means like this. There are two explanations. The people in the village would come to the big cities twice a week, Monday and Thursday. And the point of the Mishnah is that the sages, when they instituted the laws of Purim, they said that the villages who anyway have to come in to the large city on Monday and Thursday, they anyway have to be in, they can read the Megillah then. The people in the villages typically were not necessarily that learned, and therefore they couldn't read the Megillah on their own. Therefore, on Purim, to do the mitzvah of reading the Megillah, they had to come in, they'd have to make a special trip into the big city. Now, for someone to read it for them, being that they anyway have to come in Monday and Thursday to the big city, instead of making them schlep an extra time for Purim, they said that when you come in either Monday or Thursday, you'll be able to read the Megillah then. That is how it can come out that the Megillah would be read on the 11th, on the 12th, or on the 13th. It cannot be read past the 15th. There is a source in the Megillah that said that we derived, the sages derived from there. Megillah cannot be read past the 15th. And the earliest that you can read the Megillah is again on the 11th, but because of the fact that we made this exception that they could read earlier when they're anyway coming into the big city, because of that, it comes out as the Mishnah soon will explain more in detail, it could come out that you read the Megillah on the 11th, the 12th, or the 13th. Now, what were they coming into the big city for?
Food.
So,
Business,
no, they were coming to the village, coming to the big city because either they had to go to Beis Din. If they needed to go to Beis Din, the Batei Din would convene on Monday and Thursday, and therefore they were coming in anyway. They were coming if they needed a Beis Din, they would come in anyway Monday and Thursday. That's one explanation of the Baratanura. The other explanation is they came in Monday and Thursday for Kriyas HaTorah, for the reading of the Torah. And therefore, since they were in already Monday, they would anyway be in Monday and Thursday. They didn't make an extra trip. And what was the reason that the Chachamim didn't want them making an extra trip? Or was it just to save them tircha, to save them, the exertion of it? So the Baratanura says, actually not. It was really about the villages where the farms were. So when people needed to buy food, where'd you go? You took a trip from the big city to the village. If on Purim day, the villagers have to go into the big city to hear the Megillah being read, they won't be available to sell food to the to the city slickers, to the people from the big city who need food for Purim. On Purim, the people from the large cities would be going to the villages to buy food for Purim. But if the people from the villages are going to have to go into the big city to be able to hear the Megillah, then they won't be available to sell food to the people from the big cities. And therefore, the Chachamim said, since they're anyway coming in Monday and Thursday, even if it's not the 14th or the 15th, they'd be able to read the Megillah on one of those days they're anyway coming in. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shkoyach.
What happens if